Since art is subjective, stars never really know whether their projects will be well received or not. And just because fans or critics didn't like a movie, TV show, or song doesn't mean that the people who made those projects are ashamed of them. Here are some stars who defended their biggest flops. When Cats the Musical opened in 1981 at the New London Theatre, it received very warm reviews and won the Olivier and Evening Standard Awards for Best Musical. It also won 7 Tony Awards in 1983 after playing at New York City's Winter Garden Theatre. But when the film version hit theaters in 2019, let's just say it didn't generate the same positive response, despite having big-name acts attached to it like Taylor Swift, Idris Elba, and Rebel Wilson. Rotten Tomatoes, for example, has a dismal 20% rating for the film. Plus, some critics said there was little to no plot, while others said they found the costume choices disturbing since effects were used to make characters look half human, half feline. Jennifer Hudson, however, said she doesn't see why the film was reviewed so poorly. She told Total Film, "I think it was a bit overwhelming. It's unfortunate that it was misunderstood. I think later down the line, people will see it differently. But it is something I am still very proud of and grateful to have been a part of. Yeah, I got to be Grisabella, the glamour cat." The 2013 film The Fifth Estate had a lot of buzz as soon as it was announced, given that it was about WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, and that critical favorite Benedict Cumberbatch was set to play him. All of those components should have guaranteed major success for The Fifth Estate, right? Wrong. Critics hated it, and most moviegoers ignored it. Forbes reported the film had a $28 million budget, but it only raked in $6 million internationally. And it wasn't so much the cast critics didn't like, just everything else, with the film's director, Bill Condon, telling IndieWire that the movie was, quote, rushed. But none of the bad reviews have seemed to bother Cumberbatch, based on what he told Yahoo in 2013. It was an amazing character, an extraordinary role, and a really fascinating story. No one has a crystal ball when they're making a film. I don't choose roles to get fame or recognition or riches. I choose them because I'm interested in getting as much variety, both with who I work with and what I work on, so I wouldn't change the decision to do that. Most big-budget films have hundreds of people working on them, meaning that the end result is almost entirely out of the hands of the actors. As a result, many actors find they have to separate the experience of making the film and what it meant to them from the finished product itself. It seems that actor Chris Evans took that approach regarding his role as Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch, in 2005's Fantastic Four and 2007's Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Though they both did moderately well at the box office, critics trashed them. Evans, though, revealed to The Hollywood Reporter's Awards Chatter podcast in 2020 that making the films was hugely important to him on a personal level. "I had just been dumped. I needed a win, and I remember getting that phone call and just thinking, oh yes! It was really a role that I enjoyed. It was the best paycheck I had ever gotten. It felt like a little bit of a corner had been turned and maybe I could parlay this into something else." And boy did he ever, since Evans eventually became Captain America. Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez sent people on a trip of nostalgia after reuniting as a couple in 2021. As much as the media was fascinated by their reunion, though, it wasn't a tenth as much as the obsession everyone had with Bennifer back in 2002. That's when the pair met as co-stars on the set of Gigli, which was released the following year, quickly becoming one of the biggest critical and commercial flops of all time. Some even have called Gigli the worst movie ever made, while it reportedly only pulled in $7.3 million against a $54 million production budget. Still, while Affleck admitted it wasn't a great film, he defended the film in an interview with writer Paul Fisher. "I think actually, like scene by scene, there's really good stuff in there, but I don't think it hangs together as a movie. So I think fundamentally it doesn't work, but I mean the worst movie of the century?" He added that he looked at the film with a certain amount of peace. "I feel like at least I can say I did nothing small, either succeeded grandly or failed grandly. So I think you must have perspective on it. The film may be a turkey, but it's their turkey."
It's turkey time.
Huh?
Gobble, gobble.
For a lot of musicians, it takes years and multiple albums before their music gets widely noticed, but Chance the Rapper found success from the start. In 2012, he dropped his debut mixtape 10 Day to critical acclaim. He then followed that up with Acid Rap 1 year later, but it was his third mixtape, Coloring Book, released in 2016, that made him a global star. So when word came that Chance was releasing his first official LP in July of 2019, called The Big Day, the excitement was palpable. Considering the fact that so many people loved his mixtapes, it was probably easy for them to assume they'd also dig The Big Day. That was far from the case, though, because it received awful reviews. Some said at 22 songs, the project was simply too long, and others said they didn't like that many of the cuts focused on Chance's marriage to Kirsten Corley, which was new at the time. Chance eventually responded to the bad reviews in a series of now-deleted Twitter messages where he said he refused to be ashamed of his work. "Some people want me to feel ashamed. Shame is heavy, and feeling shame for something that you were once prideful about is super heavy." He also told New York station Hot 97 that he remained confident in his abilities, saying,
I'm just really good at rapping.
constant delays, an incredibly oversized budget, and beef between the star and director. All of those things contributed to Kevin Costner's film Waterworld being called one of the biggest flops ever. Plus, all of the problems associated with the film began surfacing in the press while it was still in production, so it developed the wrong kind of buzz. On top of that, the budget for the film eventually swelled to a reported $175 million in 1995 dollars, which would translate to more than $300 million today. The film reportedly took years to reach the break-even point, and Waterworld director Kevin Reynolds placed the blame squarely on his leading man, Kevin Costner. Before the film was even released, Reynolds told Entertainment Weekly, "In the future, Costner should only appear in pictures he directs himself. That way he can always be working with his favorite actor and his favorite director." Despite all that, though, Costner still defends the film. In 2015, he wrote a series of text messages to HollywoodElsewhere.com saying in part, "I'm not sure you know how beloved the movie is around the world. Being hard on a film is really easy if you don't know the underbelly of what went into it. When you do know the forensics of a movie, the participation and decisions of others that one has to stand in front of, you can't help but see it differently." He went on to add a personal note saying, "I know that people might think of Waterworld as a low point for me. It wasn't. The movie, with all its imperfections, was a joy for me." In 2021, there's a lot of talk about race relations in the US, but country singer Brad Paisley sparked a major race discussion back in 2013 after releasing a song Accidental Racist featuring rapper LL Cool J. Much of that discussion, though, involved people of all ethnicities and political beliefs trashing the song, with heavy-handed lyrics imagining a conversation between a stereotypical Southern redneck and an equally stereotypical inner-city person of color. There was no question about where LL Cool J and Paisley's hearts were at, but a lot of questions about where their heads were at. Sample lyrics? Well, Paisley says stuff like, "When I put on that t-shirt, the only thing I meant to say is I'm a Skinner fan. The red flag on my chest somehow is like the elephant in the corner of the South." And then LL Cool J responds with things like, "What the world is really like when you're living in the hood. Just because my pants are sagging doesn't mean I'm up to no good." Some accused Paisley of being way off about racism in the US, while others said Cool J was perpetuating black stereotypes, and Saturday Night Live had a field day.
Like the song says, "I'm just a white man from the Southland. Racism is cured, y'all."
It's over.
You're welcome.
It's over.
Still, Paisley defended both the song and their intentions on The Ellen DeGeneres Show in 2013. I don't know if any of you noticed, but there is some racial tension here and there. It kind of deals with that, and I felt like when we were writing this song, it wasn't necessarily up to the media or sort of talk radio or anything like that to deal with that anymore. I think it's music's turn to have the conversation. Paisley also addressed the criticism in a tweet, writing, "I wouldn't change a thing." Sean Penn's film The Last Face, which he directed, is about a man and woman having a relationship during a war in Sudan, and it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in 2016. Of course, if critics at the French festival review a film favorably, it can do wonders for that project and give it a giant push toward success. But the opposite occurred in Penn's case, because those at Cannes panned the film. And it wasn't just critics. Moviegoers slammed it as well. That didn't faze Penn, who defended the work of his cast during a Cannes press conference. "I stand behind the film as it is. Certainly everybody is going to be well entitled to their own response. I'm surrounded at this table by performances I'd pay to see 100 times. You tell him, Sean." After Halle Berry became the first black woman to win the Oscar for Best Actress back in 2002, she thought she'd be sifting through a heap of top-notch scripts from the biggest screenwriters, but that wasn't the case. She told Variety, "I thought, oh, all these great scripts are going to come my way. These great directors are going to be banging on my door." It didn't happen. It actually got a little harder. So that could be why Berry decided to star in the film Catwoman just 2 years later, a role that some might say is beneath a recent Oscar winner. Then after the film was out, she received some of the worst reviews of her career, with Rotten Tomatoes giving the flick a measly 9% rating and the Razzies awarding her the Worst Actress award. Berry spoke about the bad reviews with Entertainment Weekly in 2021, explaining that she has no regrets about being in the film. "It was one of the biggest paydays of my whole life, which there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to feel like, oh, I can only do award-worthy stuff. What is an award-worthy performance?" In fact, Berry showed up in person to receive a Razzie Award, Oscar in tow. Way to go. To say that director Guy Ritchie's 2002 film Swept Away was critically panned when it was released would be an understatement of huge proportion. The film starred Madonna, his wife at the time, so it had a colossal-sized buzz way before its premiere. But after the premiere, the talk about how much everyone hated the film was even louder. In fact, US reviews were so bad that Ritchie decided to forego a theatrical release in the United Kingdom and only put the movie out on video there. He told the Oxford Union in 2002, "It won't be released here because it's The idea was that the wife and I would make some sassy little art movie, but we got the kicked out of us." But 6 years later, Ritchie developed a whole new outlook about Swept Away and didn't think it was quite so bad. He also admitted to releasing it at the wrong time. In 2008, he told Complex that the films would have been better received if he had released them earlier in his career, before he was famous and saddled with expectations. "I like the movie. Both Swept Away and Revolver weren't supposed to be vastly successful movies. I was already established by then, but those are the kind of movies you should make before you're established. I went about it all wrong." Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Nicki Swift videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.